Hi everyone, let's talk about TNA Wrestling January 2nd, 2025. Let's talk about January 2nd, 2025 TNA Wrestling. Let's talk about it, guys. Joe Henry kicks off 2025 for TNA as advertised. The familiar sound of Joe Henry Pyro Hits theme song plays. The number one contender for the TNA World Championship and opponent for reigning title holder Nick Nemeth at TNA Genesis 2025. And Joe Henry makes his way to the ring to kick off tonight's show in 2025 in general for TNA and says his name. He say his name. He appears. It's the opening line for the argument of TNA's most popular star. And Joe Henry says his New Year revolution for 2025 is to become TNA World Champion. In the start of the Joe Henry era, and he vows to win the title at TNA Genesis 2025. And Joe Henry led fans in a "We Believe" chant. We believe, we believe, we believe, we believe. As he talks about his plans to leave TNA Genesis 2025 with the title, and he is interrupted by the theme of Ryan Nemeth, the brother of the TNA World Champion Nick Nemeth, makes his way to the ring, and Ryan Nemeth gets on the mic and says his big brother is not going to like this, and he tells Joe Henry he's not a main event. He says Joe Henry is not a main eventer, and he's a mid card and a pretty good one too, and he's also called him a snake and a backstabber who plays macho head games to try and get ahead in TNA. And he says he nor Nick Nemeth trust him. And then Joe Henry admires Ryan's ability to come out here and tell these little stories and asks who wants to hear a little story of his own. And he talks about going to the doctor due to sleep issues, and he couldn't sleep on his long flight. The doctor says he got just the thing. And have you ever heard of the Ryan Nemeth comedy special? And he says after 10 seconds he was out like a light, and says if a mid card Ryan is a janitor, so go mop the floor and get Joe Henry a coffee. Fans chant coffee, 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 coffee. And then he says I'll say it again. He says this main offender has business to attend. I'll say it again. He says this main offender. He says this main offender has business to attend to. So it's enough selling TV time for Ryan Nemeth. And Joe Henry says that's enough glory for Ryan Nemeth. And Ryan Nemeth says he'll get all the glory he needed when he beats the Hall of Famer Rhino later. And he tells Joe Henry he can sit front row when it happens later. And Joe Henry asks if he said later, and he asks who wants to see it right now. The fans pop, and he says in that case, play the music. And that's what happened right there, guys, which was awesome to start the show. Awesome, to tell you. Awesome, and it was great comedy, in my opinion. Then we had Ryan Nemeth defeating Rhino by DQ. In my opinion, it was decent till that happened, but let's talk about it anyways. So the gore theme hits, and out comes the TNA Hall of Fame legend Rhino as he heads to the ring for our first match of the evening. The show heads into a quick pre-match commercial break. When the show returns, the bells sound starts things off, and Ryan Nemeth tries begging off with a handshake offer early on, but it does him no good as Rhino takes the early lead, and Ryan Nemeth fights back into combative form to Rhino hits a big TKO for a close 2 count, and Ryan Nemeth grabs a chair from outside of the ring and brings it in, and Rhino splashes Nick Nemeth before he can use it, and Ryan Nemeth drops the chair, and Rhino picks it up and takes a long look at it, and Ryan Nemeth crawls back up as he does, and Rhino racks him across the back with the chair, and the ref calls for the bell, and Ryan Nemeth wins by disqualification. Then we had Jess Miller interview Jordan Grace backstage, and Jess Miller is standing by with Jordan Grace. She asked the Juggernaut, I'll say again, the Juggernaut about being attacked by the returning Tessa Blanchard at TNA Fall. Also, again, the returning of Tessa Blanchard at TNA Final Revolution, and Jordan Grace talked about Tessa taking her ball and going home, which was a great line right there. She says now she's trying to return and lay claim to the leader of the locker room and crap the benefits off of the back of the hard work she and others put. Well, Tessa was gone. She says she knows she's the same old Tessa, and she felt to wait by the door all night to give Tessa the nice warm welcome she truly deserved, and that wrapped up the Sid's backstage interview, which was awesome. Great, man. Then Tom runs down the action to come before the show heads into another commercial timeout. And then we have the Rascals and the Hardys will do battle for gold at TNA Genesis for the TNA World Tag Team titles. The Rascals will take on the Hardys for the tag team titles at TNA Genesis, guys. The show returns to the Rascal duo of Trey Manuel and Zachary Wentz talking about the Hardys holding the TNA World Tag Team Championships, and they called them legends and talk about growing up doing suicide bombs off their couches, and they ask what fans think about the Rascals versus the Hardys for the titles. After they finished, the Hardys themselves walked up, and Matt Hardy says the two remain. I'll say it again. Matt Hardy says the two remind them of themselves. He calls them talented, good looking, and hungry, extreme, and fearless, and mentions a big show called TNA Genesis coming up in Texas later this month. He thinks a big show like that deserves a big match like this, and the Rascals claim they fear the wrath off the place and smoke them if you. I'll say it again. Smoke them if you got them. Smoke them if you got them. Smoke them if you got them. And they post together to end the newsworthy backstage statement, which was great, guys. Which was great. Then we had Ace Austin defeating Kushida, which was a decent match. Decent match, guys. Inside the Impact Zone, the famous sound of Kushida's entrance tune plays after he settles in the ring, and ABC's theme hits, and Ace Austin cartwheels his way out of the entrance tunnel, and he heads to the ring for our next match of the evening as Tom and Matt talk about Austin beating Trent Seven at TNA Final Retribution, and the bell sounds to get this one officially off and running. Tom plugs the help support Chris Bay offense at TNAWrestling.com Bay, and the two lock up, and Kushida takes Ace Austin back and ankle picks him, and he spins him like Brock Lesnar on Frank Mir in the UFC debut many moons ago. And Ace Austin stumbles back to his feet and takes a breather on the top turnbuckle before re-aging, and Kushida and Ace Austin end up on the mat again, with Kushida looking to attack the leg of Ace Austin with a submission mitt, and following a long head scissor hold, and the two scrabble back to their feet again, where Ace Austin connects with a big drop kick, and Kushida fights back and locks in a furious cross arm breaker on Ace Austin on the hard part of the ring apron outside of the ring post, and I'll say it again, I'll repeat it again. They fell out to the floor as the show heads into a mid-match break. Well, the show returns, and Ace Austin is selling his arm as he makes a big fire up offense comeback, and he looks for an homage to Chris Bay with an art of fitness, but Kushida offenses it off the top rope, and Kushida once again straps Ace Austin in a strong armbar on the mat, and you sense a triangle ascent, but Ace Austin escapes, and Ace Austin goes for the heart of finishes again, but one more. Kushida blocks it and comes with a drop kick, and he looks for the back to Austin again. He looks for back to the future, but Ace Austin offenses it and connects with a spin kick of his own, and Ace Austin follows up with the ace up his sleeves for the victory, and that's how he won, guys, and that's how he won. And I'll say it again. Ace Austin does the up his lip. Again, Ace Austin follows up with the ace up his sleeves, and that's how he won and defeated Kushida, which was a fun match, guys. Then Moose and I'll say it again. Moose and Ace Austin. I'll say it again. Moose and Ace Austin battle for gold at TNA Genesis for the world title. I'll say it again, guys. Moose and Ace Austin to do battle for gold at TNA Genesis for the TNA world title or the X Division title. I mean to say X Division. Sorry, X Division. I remembered. Moose has the X Division title. My bad, guys. Daydreaming. But Moose and Ace Austin do battle for the X Division at TNA Genesis, and Ace Austin gets on the mic and says, every day Chris Bay fights for a better life, and he fights for him in the ring, and he talks about Chris Bay with tears in his eyes before surgery and saying his sins means, and Ace Austin has to go on a crazy single run and win the big one for him, and he talks about being a top guy in the company for a long time, and he thinks it's time to become the top guy for the top title, and he says he wants Nick Nemeth in the TNA World Championship. Instead, he cuts off by the famous sound of the tune for the TNA X Division champion Moose. Like I said again, which I made a mistake. I said world champion. He's not the world champion. He's the TNA X Division champion. I made a mistake. You know what I'm saying? And Moose says the TNA X Division Championship is the flagship title in TNA. Without it, TNA wouldn't be what it is. And he calls himself the franchise of TNA and what makes it the hottest wrestling company on the planet right now. Moose says when Ace Austin talks about going after the top title, Moose is holding on to the top title, and he says Ace Austin is scared of him. So go ahead, take the easy way out, and go ahead and go after Nick Nemeth in the TNA title. And Ace Austin cuts him off, and Moose tells him to shut the hell up. And just like your partner Chris Bay, Ace Austin smacks the microphone off his hand and calls him a disrespectful piece of shit, which was amazing. Which was amazing, guys. Amazing. I can't wait for this match for Ace Austin and Moose for the X Division title. I can't wait for it. Can't wait for it, guys. Can't wait for it, man. And he says, maybe you don't know how to count this high, but I have been X Division champion not once, not twice, but 3 times. And he talks about carrying the X Division for years. And he says if he wants to learn something about the X Division, he's standing in the ring with the right guy. And he says he's happily to become a 4-time TNA X Division champion. Yes, Ace Austin will be a 4-time X Division champion if he wins. And the theme for TNA Director of Authority, Santino Marella, hits, and Santino Marella says it will be Moose versus Ace Austin for the X Division title at TNA Genesis 2025. Then we had Steve Macklin and Josh Alexander and Jonathan Grissom brawled with the system, which was fun. Fun, guys. Backstage, Steve Macklin and Josh Alexander and Jonathan Grissom all agreed they're pissed off, and they asked what they're going to do about it and walk. The system sent Moose and the ladies, who asked what they're going to do too, and they do the arguably while standing right in front of the Cinch trio. All 6 end up in a big brawl, and we see all 3 seconds of the camera pan to Jordan Grace and padding up and getting ready for the big Prince main event later in the show. Then we had a big tag team match announced for next week. This coming week, guys. This coming week for TNA this Thursday. Let's talk about it. On the note, the show cuts to another commercial break. When the show returns, we see a letting match since as the TNA Plus moment of the week. We return live to Ryan Nemeth being checked by the doctors after being hit with a chair, and wait till my big brother hears about this. And Joe Henry and Rhino against Nick Nemeth and Ryan Nemeth are made for next week, when all 4 end up bickering with Santino Marella entering the picture and making the match official. So yes, guys, we'll see Joe Henry and Rhino against Nick Nemeth and Ryan Nemeth, which that's going to be fun, guys. That's going to be really fun. Then we had Mike Santana confronted by Josh. I'll say it again. I'll repeat it again. Mike Santana confronts by Josh Alexander and the Northern Army. I was thinking Mike Santana confronts by Josh Alexander and the Northern Army. Instead, I was thinking, repeat it again because I make mistakes a lot. Mike Santana confronts. Also again, Mike Santana confronted by Josh Alexander and the Northern Army inside the impact zone. The hip hop sound of Mike Santana's theme hits, and he makes his way to the ring through the crowd, and he gets on the mic and says he is going to do what he does best and speak from the heart. And he talks about his tough life on the streets, growing up, his hard time in rehab, beating addiction, and he talks about coming to TNA and becoming one of the best after people said he made career suicide, and he said it's time to get back to the path of promise, and that's becoming the center of TNA. As he continues to talk, the theme for Josh Alexander hits to cut him off. Out comes the walking weapon along with the other duo from the Northern Army, and Josh Alexander gets on the mic and says everyone says they want to be the guy, but very few can essentially risk to a sense and train it. And Josh Alexander says they're cut from the same cloth, and he told Mike Santana he's always liked him, and he calls him tough and talented, and he lost his cool at some fans and yelled at them to shut their damn mouth. But worse, as it was beeped out, and he turns and talks to take off mic and off camera for a moment, then returns to his point, and he tells Mike Santana he might not be who he is today if not for the war between LAX, which he was with the part LAX with Ortiz and Emmer when it was called Impact Wrestling, and the North, the LAX in the North, and he asked how that ended, and he says he was beat by the North in St. Pakistan, where the North became the longest reigning champions in this company's history for tag team history, and he lands right in Mike Santana's face and says he, he left for green measures and asks what happened, and he tells him he failed, and he says he's the man who beat Christian Cage to become the TNA World Champion, and he lost it before he could rip it around his waist, and he didn't piss and moan, and he came out next week, and he comes out the next week and wins again, and then he beat Bronson Reed and climbed till he got back to the top of the mountain, and it was Dynasty, which was great history right there. Talking about that, guys. Great stuff. Great freaking stuff. As long as he is in TNA, Mike Santana will never be the guy, and Josh Alexander and the Northern Army go to leave, and Mike Santana stopped them and said, "Hey, where are you going?" He said Josh Alexander might be right. He stand here and beat killer after killer to become the face of TNA. And now, was it you, or because you was kissing ass and sucking up to the man with the pencil? And Mike Santana brings up Josh Alexander bald ass head. Fan chant bald ass head, bald ass head, bald ass head. Then Josh Alexander clears him, and Mike Santana says he can whip all three of their asses. And he says, how about next week we go through Josh Alexander and his entire squad in one night, and he fails to prove he's what he said, and he wish is. I'll say it again. He says, how about next week he goes through Josh Alexander and his entire squad in one night, and he fails to prove he's what he said he is, and which is the nastiest ever. And you'll see. I was thinking, see your bitch ass next week in Mic Drop, which was great, guys. He said, I'll see you asses next week on Mic Drop, which was awesome, which was really good. But Mike Santana and Josh Alexander, really good stuff right there, guys. Really good stuff, man. And bringing up the past, which was awesome. Bringing up the past of the history of TNA and Impact Wrestling, awesome. Just freaking awesome, man. Freaking awesome, I'm telling you. Freaking awesome. Freaking awesome, guys. Just freaking awesome, I'm telling you. Then we had Nick Nemeth and Ryan Nemeth talking upcoming business, and we shoot backstage and we see Jordan Grace gearing up still when she is met by her partner for tonight, 8 knockout tag team main event, and Santino Marella tells them they're up next on that note, and the show heads to a commercial break. When the show returns, Frankie Kazarian and JDC have some fun mocking Leon Slater after he walks off following his pursuits, refuse to accept the self-proclaimed king of TNA offered to since be his errand boy, and then back inside the impact zone, the theme for the one-in man hits, and out comes the TNA World Champion Nick Nemeth, and he says he has a lot to say, so he's going to get right down to it. He talks about facing Joe Henry at TNA Bounce for Glory, and he says Joe Henry was this close to become TNA World Champion, and Nick Nemeth puts over Joe Henry some more before pointing out how he can't keep putting him over because he's going to kick his ass in a couple of weeks, and talks about presenting the TNA locker room as the TNA World Champion, and he says TNA Genesis will be a special night, and he says Joe Henry is bringing everything he got, and we all know he's coming to steal the show and stay your champion, and he's I'll say it again, guys. I'll say it again. He knows Joe Henry is bringing everything he got, and we all know he's coming to steal the show and stand our champion. And he brings up Santino Marella bringing a tag team match with himself and his brother Ryan Nemeth against Rhino and Joe Henry for next week, and continues to talk, but he cuts off his own brother and my brother Nick. I'll say it again. My brother Nick. It is so great to see you. And he asks about him putting over Joe Henry, and he reminds him he's a snake, and he says he'll hit him in the back first chance, and he gets just like Rhino hits him in the back with a steel chair, and he says we'll show everything next week. Then I'll say it again, guys. I'll repeat it again. He says they'll show everything next week that the name Nemeth is symbiosis with greatness, and Nick tells Ryan not to forget he's in this match because of him, and he says he should be focusing on TNA Genesis, but says not to worry because we'll take care of business, and he walks off, which was great, guys. Really good stuff right there. Then we had the main event, which was decent in my opinion. Decent. Masa Slamovich and Jordan Grace and Spitfire, Dana Luna and Joey Threat defeated Rosemary and Tasha Steelz and Ash by Elegance and Heather by Elegance. And let's talk about it, guys. But first, we are given the lineup for next week's TNA Impact, and Tom and Matt run down the update lineup for TNA Genesis 2025 as the officials make graphic flash across the screen. And backstage we see TNA security and officials standing over a beatdown security guard, and Santino Marella runs up and says they need more security, and Tom brings up Tasha. I'll say it again. Tom brings up Tessa Blanchard, but it is never confirmed to be here. I'll say it again. Tom brings up Tessa Blanchard, but it is never confirmed to be her. Inside the impact zone, Ash by Elegance and Heather by Elegance make their way out to the ring, and Tasha Steelz comes out next, followed by Rosemary in the first four tag. I was thinking the first four knockouts team settle inside the square circle for our final match of the evening, and TNA Knockouts Tag Team Champions Spitfire, Dana Luna, and Joey Threat make their way out first for the consistency, and they stop at the top of the stage and wait, and their music dies down and Sid Spears and comes out the juggernaut Jordan Grace, and finally the TNA knockout Masa Slamovich, the TNA Knockouts Women's Champion. Masa Slamovich is out next, and the babyface foursome head to the ring for our 8 knockouts tag team main event of the evening before the match gets underway, and the show heads to another commercial break, and the show returns, and Tasha Steelz and Masa Slamovich Muscle Slevovich are in the middle of a process action, and Tasha Steelz is throwing kicks at Muscle Slevovich and gets back to her feet, and Muscle Slevovich hits the ropes and runs over Tasha Steelz with a lariat, and she snaps Mars her down and kicks her in the back with authority, and Tasha Steelz fights back into I'll say again, Tasha Steelz fights back into com- competitive form and tags in Rosemary, who picks up where she left off, taking it to the TNA Knockout champion. Muscle Slevovich fights back and tags in Jordan Grace, and the two hit a double team spot on Rosemary, and another Jordan Grace goes for the cover but gets only two, and Spitfire takes over and hits some double team spots, then gets the crowd back on their feet, and after some back and forth action, and the show heads to another mid-air commercial break. When the show returns, the heel team is in the lead, and Bersitz Begins takes over to George Iceman gets involved at ringside, and this allows Ash by Elegance to shove the momentum back in her team's favor, and she stomps away at Threat. Also again, at Threat in the corner, and Ash also again. She steps away at Joy Threat in the corner, and Heather by Elegance is tagging and takes over Rosemary Persistence and assistance behind the rest back as the heels foursome continues to control the action and keeping Joy Threat on the mat on their side of the ring, and the show heads into the final mid-match commercial break of the evening. When the show returns, Joy Threat is still sits in the ring with Rosemary controlling her, and the crowd trying to rally behind her, and Joy Threat finally makes the much needed tag, and they're since fighting back into the competitive form, and they are a bunch of quick tags to give everyone some ring time in the closing minutes of the contest. As one time, I'll say it again. I said one time. I'll say it again. Quick tag to give everyone some ring time in the closing minute of the contest. As 1 point, there are all 8 competitors in the ring at the same time, and Spitfire and the Spitfire and the Elegance do a battle at ringside, leaving the other 4 alone in the ring. And Grace and Slemovich double team, and Steelz fights off Grace, but turns inside a big kick from Slemovich, and Slemovich follows up with their finisher for the victory, and that's how they won that match, and that's how, and I'll say it again, and that's how they won, guys, and that's how they won. In that 8-man, the 8 women's tag match, which was good, like I said again, guys, I'll repeat it again, guys. And that's how Muscle Slevovich and Jordan Grace and Spitfire defeated Rosemary and Tasha Steelz and Ash by Elegance and Heather by Elegance, with Muscle Slevovich doing her move and winning the match. And that's what happened right there, guys. Like I said again, I'll repeat it again. So Muscle Slevovich follows it up with her finisher for the victory, and that's what happened. Then we had Tessa Blanchard kicks out Jordan Grace and takes her back to the locker room. I'll repeat it again. Tessa Blanchard kicks out Jordan Grace and takes her back to the locker room as the winning team celebrates Tessa Blanchard, who is advertised for the show, makes her a since. I'll say it again. As the winning team celebrates Tessa Blanchard, who is advertised for the show, makes her experience attack from behind. She and Jordan Grace powder off to the back, and Rosemary sprays miss at ringside, and the camera catches up with Tessa, who is beating down Jordan Grace, and she literally drags her out of the building and throws her outside, and she tells her, and now I'm taking my locker room back, and she pulls the garage door shut and storms through the backstage area and shoving people and yelling and get out of my way. And that's how the first TNA of the new year of 2025 goes off the air, with Tessa Blanchard pulling Jordan Grace, which was great, guys, and people yelling and getting out of my way. She said, "Get out of my way," and that's what happened right there, and that's why I ended the show. And I give this show an 8 out of 10, guys, an 8 out of 10. This was a very good TNA episode. I give it an 8 out of 10, guys. I give it an 8 out of 10. So don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell as always, guys. And I give this TNA, like I said again, an 8 out of 10. And this is Christopher Jackson Ever. So again, this is Christopher Jackson Ever. Don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell as always. And this is Christopher Jackson Ever, and we're out. Peace out and take care, guys. Peace out and take care.